When we think of Oklahoma over in the UK, we think of a thigh slapping musical and people dancing around stagecoaches. What we don't think of are religious schools, particularly, which is so it's odd to discover via ABC News that the statewide virtual charter school board in Oklahoma City voted 3-2 to approve an application of a Catholic school, a St. Isidore of Seville, Isidore, the one used to eat gross things, virtual charter school. It's an interesting idea that they are trying to push here, that you can have a lovely religious school. And I'm from a country that has lots of religious schools, and I've spent a lot of time fighting those religious schools to try and get rid of them, because the idea is you keep them secular by saying, yes, but you've got to take everybody. You can't just take Catholics. And of course, they like that because they get to proselytize and pretend that they aren't. But Cindy, do you have religious schools where you are?
Yes, we have. In France, there are, but they have to abide by a very strict set of rules. Um, so if they don't, they will be forced out of business, basically, because they need that public money. So they can't um, enforce religion. They have to follow the curriculum. But yeah, you said they try to sneak a religion. Uh, Actually, the article says that the Archdiocese of Oklahoma said in the vision and purpose of the organization section of the application that, and I quote, the Catholic school participates in the evangelizi- sorry, evangelizing mission of the church and is the privileged environment in which Christian education is carried out. So, yeah, the enforcement of religion is pretty clear here. Uh, on the other hand, I don't think this will go very far. I think the very second someone will push this to court, it will be ended. Now, this will most likely be pushed to the Supreme Court, and it will be very interesting to see um, what happens then, because it's a very interesting topic on this. Aaron, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it seems clear cut to me that this is definitely a problem with separation of religion and government. Unfortunately, I am not very optimistic about our current Supreme Court knocking this down, reversing this. But to move on a little bit, you often hear people, religious people, say that, well, isn't secularism just another form of religion? Isn't it just a different religion? Why can't we have teach both secularism and our religious views? You know, why can't we teach creationism and evolution? And my response to that is because secularism is based on on facts. It's based on the truth, the best way that we know the world to be, the way the world works. And that's what we want to teach people. We want to teach people the way the world works. In fact, but in religion, there's this faith aspect to things where you also teach people to believe things and know things that aren't necessarily true, and that you have to have faith to believe them. And so I don't think that secularism and religion is a religion. Secularism is just a way of looking at the world based on facts instead of faith. Kelley?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm really was wondering about is, since if Oklahoma's gonna finance a Catholic school, are they now gonna finance a madrasa if somebody wants one? Are they gonna finance a gurukul, a yeshiva? That's what I want to know, and I think those questions need to be answered yes, because if any of them are answered no, then they shouldn't be funding a Christian school either. One big thing I see happening here is Catholics and other Oklahoma Christians using this episode to fuel their persecution complex. I can hear them now. They won't even let us open a school in Oklahoma, which of course isn't the truth, but that's the way that it's going to be presented. And I'm afraid that I'm positive this will be struck down in the courts. I am positive it will be. But what I'm afraid it's going to do is it's going to fuel that persecution complex. They're going to use it as an excuse to show why Christians are being so having their rights taken away so bad. I just totally had a brain fart there, and that's I think the biggest harm that this is going to do. Dr. Rich, you want to follow me up there?
Well, I'm just thinking about it. There's only one argument that I think they may have that they could take to any court, and it's this: the school is a virtual school, and I can see them saying, well, the thing is, there's a lot of Christian parents don't want their children going to state school, so they're being homeschooled. So surely we're the better option. At least we've got professional teachers and resources and curriculum and plans. We're not just someone's mum who thinks they're now a teacher and knows what they're doing. I think that is the only argument I can sustain it with. I mean, it's not a good argument because, send them to school. Where I'm from, by law, you have to send your kids to school. There's no homeschooling. You get fined. Someone was even jailed once for not sending their kid to an actual school. But I think that's the only argument I can think of. But I do agree completely. I do think, from what I know of American law, it's going to get squished in court.
Another argument they would have is that it is a charter school, so it's voluntary. Yeah. Your kids don't have to go to a charter school. Yeah. That it's more like an alternative to the public school. So that's an argument that they could use in court. I still don't think it's going to work because of the state funding. So that's the only thing. Cindy, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, it's just one more step towards Christofascism. We've been talking about this a couple of times recently. This very, very strong tendency towards, on one hand, fascism, and the other hand, Christianity and theocracy. So, yeah, it's very scary because it's very strong. This movement is extremely strong in the US. And on the other hand, I've seen the number that I think it's 16.3% of the population who identifies as Christian, something like that. And still these people have the upper hand right now. They have the majority in government, in culture, in everywhere. And I just, despite being a minority, despite being the oldest category of people as well, I don't see how they can still win every day, and that puzzles me and that scares me.
Aaron, you want to?
Yeah, I was interested in what Rich was saying, and I don't have a problem with a religious organization running a school as long as there's no religion in the school. A lot of when I was still believing, there, like I mentioned earlier, there's this concept of being in the world but not of the world. And a lot of people homeschool their kids not necessarily because what is being taught, but because of the environment that their students are in. They don't want them around, the sex and the violence and just the worldliness of the schools. They want them separate, so they're not subject to that. And I wouldn't have a problem with a religious organization having a school, as long as they meet the same standards that the public schools do, as long as there's a separation between religion and government, and then they can have their own set of behavioral rules at the school that they want to keep their kids to, just as long as they're not preaching faith. Rich?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in Europe, as with France, UK, we do have religious schools, even though we have many fewer religious people, and we have strict curriculum that they must follow. They can't just say, well, we're not going to bother with evolution. We won't let them. They can't just say, we're not going to bother with Big Bang cosmology. We won't let them. They have to. This is the curriculum, and you stick to it. And if you don't, your school can be shut down. We can replace the staff. We can do all sorts of things. So in that way, if it's that kind of thing might work. But there's an old saying that I was reminded of recently, which is the answer to the question of why do they still have the power, this group, and it is the world is run by the people who show up. and they show up. They show up to the voting booths, they show up to the school councils, they show up to all these things, and the rest of them don't. And it's a shame, really, because we really need to start showing up. Yeah, simple as that. Kelley.
I just want to address a few things. One, Aaron, that was great. You brought up be in the world, not of the world. And yet here they are being of the world, pushing this through a state legislature. So I find it really ironic and that and it's something that I've always found ironic when I hear Christians say it, and then they go and get themselves involved in politics. It doesn't make any sense to me in the long run. I had something to say about what you said too, Dr. Rich, but I forgot now, unfortunately. And one of who I see as the big losers in this whole thing is the taxpayers of Oklahoma. The Attorney General of Oklahoma has already come out. He has said this law is unconstitutional. It's not going to stand. We know it's not going to stand, but the state will have to pay for the defense, and they're going to have to pay for the prosecution on all legal cases over it. They're paying on both sides. And it is literally throwing money away on something that we already know has a foregone conclusion. It is strictly stated in the United States Constitution that this is not legal. The governor came out in favor of it, but he hasn't explained to the taxpayers what it's going to cost them, what it's going to take to implement it. And he knows full well, just like the state's attorney knows. And he's been warned about the legal reasons why it's not going to work. And I don't know why they're just pushing this through, because like I said, who's getting screwed by it? The taxpayers. Aaron, did you have something?
Yeah, and I'm also constantly amazed at people's attempt to make this a Christian country, this Christian nationalism, because we should every religious person should value the separation of religion and government more than anybody else, because you're not always going to be the winner. You're not always going to be on top. And when you're not on top, you don't want someone shoving their religion down on you. So don't shove your religion down on me. Let people mind your own business. Let people live the way they want to live. If you don't like what they're doing, then don't participate in it. Don't support it. Yeah. But mind your own business. And we should all get together and value the separation of religion and government, because it just makes everybody safer. It makes everybody better. It improves everybody's lives. Cindy?
Yeah, I don't know if you have ever tried, but try to talk someone out of the belief that this is not a Christian country. That's going to be very hard. I've tried a couple of times, but the amount of disinformation behind this belief is astonishing, and it's extremely hard to prove someone and to make them accept it that this is not a Christian country, and they will go to any information, and yet the information and fact that you will be able to present, they won't change their mind, because that's the basis of their justification to want a theocracy. If you remove this belief, then they have no justification anymore, and they can't allow that. So yeah, I don't think it's very, very effective. Dr. Rich?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's this idea that they have to. It's probably. I mean, what I think of is, in this country, we had an ex-Archbishop of Canterbury once write an article, very good article, brilliant bit of writing, about how the UK is not a Christian country, it is a post-Christian country, and it made some very good arguments. And he said that generally everything here is secular, and it's good that it's secular, and religion can do its thing without interference from government. One of the people I used to do the anti-religious schools thing was actually a chaplain at a university, because they don't want a presidency where government is interfering with the church, because this swings both ways. They seem to forget that, you get your theocracy, and all of a sudden the leader of the country you're in is messing with your church as well. They have that power too, and they've got to remember that. That's a danger, you know what I mean? And they seem to miss that. They seem to miss that important factor. And I don't know many people, and it's ironic because technically I do live in a theocracy because the head of my state, King Charles III, is the head of the national church as well. But we don't act like one, and we have archbishops of Canterbury saying we're not one. But yeah, it's a rally cry to all sides of when this fight to separate religion and government isn't just an atheist thing. It's a thing that everybody should get behind because it helps both sides. Stay in your lane, basically.
It increases liberty, right? That's what.
Yeah,
that's really what we're fighting for, and what I'm fighting for is the liberty to live my life the way I want to, and the liberty to let other people live the lives they want to. As long as you're not harming me or harming others, I don't care. Live your life. It's none of my business.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to kind of segue on to what Cindy said about this being a Christian country. I was raised Latter-day Saint Mormon, and they have a really interesting view on the United States. They believe that this country was founded by God for the purposes of so the church could come forth and restore the truth to the country. And so if you talk to Latter-day Saints, they're very patriotic, and they very much love the Constitution. They support the Constitution, and hopefully that is true. And it's a really interesting view. Kelley?
I just wanted to talk about the separation of church and state for a second because everybody's brought it up. And I don't think a lot of people in the United States really understand why it's in our Constitution. And I think Cindy and Dr. Rich probably have a better understanding. It's because they come from countries, and our founding fathers came from countries where we fought wars over religion. The 16th century wars of religion in France, for example. All the things that happened during the Tudor times in England, between Protestants and Catholics persecuting each other back and forth. And that was within the memory of our founding fathers. And that separation of church and state was put there not to protect the state, but to protect the churches. And I don't think they understand that. So, yeah. Dr. Ritz, did you want to add something to it?
I'm really. Sorry. I just agree with you. I think Cindy's got something to say.
Yes. One other thing that they don't understand is that they would benefit from separation of church and state as well, because what they don't understand is that Christianity it comes in 1,000 flavors. How many sects of Christianity is it? 3,000. So if you have a Catholic president and he wants to impose Catholicism to everyone, then what do Protestants do? Another war like it happened 400 years ago? No, they won't like it. If someone else, even slightly different than them, if you have a tolerant Christian in charge, then they won't like it. Some of them won't like it. If you have someone who is very, very strong, like the former vice president, for example, other people won't like it because they won't believe the same thing that he does. So that's something that they don't understand. That protects them as well.
Yes. No, thank you very much, everyone. What a great conversation we're having here today. And you know what? I want to thank everybody else for watching and listening. And if you want to hear more from the nonprofits, you can click here.